Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our fourth and final webinar in the Maritime Peplink Certified Engineer series. We'll be getting started now. There are a few more people joining us now, but yeah, we'll get going. Raise your hand if you can hear me nice and clear. Okay, very good. That's a lot of hands raised, so that sounds good. So thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to cover the fourth and final section, which is all about the exam for the Maritime Peplink Certified Engineer. First, we're going to have a look at a mock question. So let's have a look at some of the specifics of this situation. This vessel's itinerary includes locations in the Mediterranean and Caribbean. They need to provide their guests with fast and reliable internet, and they need a seamless transition between different cellular providers. Their current deployment involves 2 BR1 LTEs, a balanced 580, and 7 AP1 minis. So let's brainstorm the pros and cons of these points. So the dual BR1s, they allow for multiple active modems. The balanced 580 is managing the whole network. So it's doing the DHCP on the LAN, it's managing outbound policies, firewall rules, things like that. It's also acting as the AP controller. So that's all good. So what are some of the disadvantages? So each BR1 is limited to 100 megabits throughput on the Ethernet ports. And if it's the older BR1s, it's going to be limited even more than that on the cellular modems. In this setup, they were not using speed fusion. This meant they were not getting the best results as the internet regularly dropped out. And this was one of the main gripes of the owner. So we're seeing an average data usage increase of 50 to 100% year on year. Ultimately, the client wants internet like they get at home. So some lucky people get like a gigabit per second at home, but ultimately that's not possible on yachts. So anything near that cannot be achieved using a traditional single cellular setup. So does the perfect solution exist? On the cellular side, no. You'll never have the best setup for all locations, but you can find the middle ground when prioritizing for long-range connectivity and reliability. For the local network on board yachts, the PepWave ecosystem is an amazing solution. We're able to monitor vessels' connectivity the whole way from the data center all the way to the end user's device. Being able to see this all in one place makes troubleshooting much easier and quicker. So in this example, we've got the data center with a SDX in there and Speed Fusion set up. So all the internet access is routed through that. And then on board, we've got a MBX antennas. We've got 2 MBXs. One is set up as HA, so high availability. Then we've also got an SD switch, 16 port there, and a BR1 power. So the BR1 power can manage the power inputs for other devices as well. We've also got a AP1 mini access point there as well. So obviously you have multiple access points on most vessels. So let's have a look at how you can formulate your answer. We'll recap on some of the content from the previous sessions. In the first webinar, we evaluated the equipment in a generalized manner for the maritime industry. Now we're going to do the same, but for this particular situation. In the second session, we covered installing the equipment on board. We looked at things such as antenna location, cables, router location, lightning protection and grounding. In the questions, if it does not state a specific detail, you can make an assumption, but you need to explain your thought process and reasoning. So to evaluate the current deployment, you want to make sure there are no splitters. Coaxial cable runs are nice and short. High quality cables have been used, and there are as few RF connectors as possible. For the antennas, you want to make sure that the placement is optimal. 360-degree uninterrupted view of the horizon is the best, but that's not always achievable. You also want to make sure that the appropriate antenna has been chosen. Grounding also needs to be confirmed. In the third webinar, we covered optimizing the equipment. We looked at Speed Fusion, Fusion Hub, Fusion Sim, and briefly touched on the SD-WAN controller and in Control 2. So which endpoint did the user end up using for Speed Fusion, and why did they do it this way? Was it Fusion Hub, a physical device like a Peplink router, well, it has to be a Peplink router, or even did they use Speed Fusion Cloud? If they used Speed Fusion, which features in Speed Fusion did they utilize? Explain the advantages of the features used, or the reason why features were not used. Sorry, I'm just going to do an audio check here. Can everybody hear me? Can you just raise your hand if you can hear me? I've got someone saying in the comments that they can't hear me. Okay, so if that seems like there's a lot of people raising their hands, so the majority of people can hear me then. Okay, that's very good. Okay, so we'll carry on even. So which firmware version was used? Are they updated to the latest? Peplink doesn't have a firmware schedule, but we do release new firmwares about every 3 months, and they're always packed with nice new features. We've got a beta out at the moment, so go and check that out. Another thing to consider is the outbound policies. Which ones were used and why? Are there any limitations of the way they are used? Is in Control 2 being used? What features from in Control 2 are used and why? Did they solve any particular issue that the client had? Then you want to repeat this for your next deployment. So for the exam, there will be one long question, but you should be carrying out an evaluation like this for every install and every vessel, as every vessel is going to be different. We will now have a look at the marking criteria for the long question. So marking is based on the originality of your understanding of Peplink products and technology. In the case of plagiarism of an answer, including any direct content of copying from the Peplink forum, Peplink website, or previous submitted answers, you'll receive 0 marks in this section. Please note that the marking of the long questions will take place within a week of you sitting the exam. We've established a panel of examiners who will be assigned the answers anonymously, so they will not know whose answer they are marking. Each question will be marked by one examiner, and then they will be reviewed by another examiner before the marks are released. So this is our marking range. We expect most of our existing partners to be in at least the good range, if not excellent or outstanding. Let's start out at the top with the outstanding. What we're after is an exceptional understanding of the complete technical ecosystem on board. So we want you to explain in detail and depth all the implications that can affect the install and the reasoning behind every decision that you've made of what you've specified for that particular install. So we expect you to use technical vocabulary where appropriate. So one of the key things that we're looking for is your ability to see beyond the question. So we want you to prove to us that you've thought about everything to do with that particular situation. So the next two levels we have are excellent and good. So this marking criteria of 85 points or whatever you get in the long question, that's valid for half of the total marks in the exam. So the next levels we have are average and fail. So from fail and below, so 60 points and below, you'll fail and receive zero, fail that section. So poor, very poor and disqualified. These, we don't want to see a lot of people in this area. So if we see answers that are obviously copy and pasted with either material from our website or from other answers that have been submitted, they will be disqualified. So let's have a look at some more mock questions. So we want you to suggest a connectivity solution using Peplink devices for the below scenario. We want you to explain in detail from selecting the equipment, installing the equipment, and optimizing the equipment. So a bit of info on the background of this vessel. As part of a fleet of 7 yachts, they shared a VSAT capacity of 35 megabits per second, and the bandwidth was mostly allocated to the 2 largest yachts. So what would you recommend that they did for this vessel? So you need to brainstorm the points and explain your solution and how you got to that solution. So this is what the solution actually was. We deployed 2 MBXs for the 2 largest vessels. Last summer, only about 1% of the time was spent out of cellular range and utilising that VSAT as their sole internet source. This summer, they've reduced the VSAT capacity to 20 megabits per second. 1 month's saving from the VSAT covers the cost of 2 MBXs plus installation and cellular data for the whole season. So you imagine that over multiple months, how much they've saved in just 1 summer. So this shows the footprint that the vessel was under. With their previous cellular setup, they were cruising in the same areas, but they were struggling to get reliable connectivity from cellular. So they had to rely heavily on the VSAT, hence having a much higher bandwidth. So now we're going to go through the whole process for all these mock questions. So we're not going to go through the whole process for all these mock questions. It's up to you to repeat the steps from above. So this is the kind of process you should be following to specify. First, start with evaluating what the client already has and why it is not working for them. Now you want to evaluate the best option to upgrade them to the best possible solution while remaining within their budget. Then installing the equipment. So you want to install it in the best way possible so that the equipment can achieve the best results. Now that everything is installed, you want to get that equipment running at 100%. That includes using SpeedFusion for reliability and fast connectivity, and InControl 2 for remote monitoring and access. You could also be using FusionSim and our other virtualized services like that. Okay, so as this is our final session, please feel free to ask any questions which may have remained unanswered from the previous sessions as well. So when will the exam be available? The exam, I believe, will be available from tomorrow. So you'll be able to log in and see that tomorrow. I had a question that came in the other day via email. Someone was asking, is category 18 5G? So the simple answer is no. Category 18 is not 5G. It's LTE. So it's definitely not 5G. So our 5G modems will be starting from category 22. For our partners, please join us on the 27th of May for a business update webinar, which will include our 5G roadmap. And so Eric's asking, when can I get the recordings of this training so I can prepare for the test? So the recordings for the first 2 sessions are available now. If you visit our forum, they're there. The recording from the 3rd session will be available tomorrow, and today's session will be available later on this week. You should have also received them via email as well. So can you show a sample answer to understand the structure required? How is it expected to be laid out? Okay, so the way it to be laid out, that is up to you. We want to hear you explain it in detail on how you would do it. So it's up to you how you lay it out. We don't have any set layout. We want to get an idea of your understanding of how the you understand the situation. Okay, so Marcus is asking, for the first scenario shown, I'd like to hear from you on whether you would choose the internal wireless access point controller over in-control 2. So personally, I would choose the onboard access point controller, as that's the way I have usually done it, as it's not relying on an outside internet source then. Obviously the access points, even when controlled by in-control 2, they do remain up even when there's no internet. But yeah, in my experience, I just use the onboard access point controller. So Simon asks, I presume there's a time limit for doing the multiple choice portion. Does it include the long question as well, or is there a separate time limit for the question? No, it's a 1 hour time limit for the multiple choice questions and the long answer. So you get 60 minutes to do that. So yeah, there's 25 multiple choice questions. So that shouldn't take you too long to do, and then the rest of the time is allocated for the long question. Jeff asked, do the Peplink products get maritime certification? We don't have any products that are maritime certified as such, but we do have a lot of products that are IP67 rated, and also a lot of products that are like rolling stock, so for like trains and vibration certified and things like that. If anyone does have particular certifications that are required for certain projects, get in contact with us and we can have a look at it and evaluate what the requirements are and things like that. Simon's asking, is there a transcript of the Q&As from the previous sessions from? Yes, I've been uploading a list of the Q&As to the forum. So if you have a look on the forum, they're there for each session. Okay. Could you please explain again about the PCE and the mPCE exams? Okay, so we have the existing PCE exam, Peplink Certified Engineer. So that's like the first level of certification that we have. Once you've achieved that, you'll then be up to the Maritime Peplink Certified Engineer. So that's the maritime one is specified for the maritime market. We will also be doing other vertical exams, so for like transportation and MSP and things like that as well. So those ones will cover topics that are more relevant to those industries. So for MSPs, it'll be things like MPLS and that kind of stuff, the kind of things that we don't deal with in the maritime industry in a common day. Does the mPCE certification extend the expiration date of an existing PC certification? No, it doesn't. Each certification is individual and must be revalidated every 2 years. So our exams are updated, the questions are updated. So if you did the PCE exam 2 years ago, there are a whole lot of new questions that have been added now. So you will need to revalidate that, and it's not a case if it gets automatically extended. Todd's asking, should the long answer be in a narrative paragraph form or bullet points? Okay, so it's completely up to you, but I would suggest a combination of the two. So you need to explain your thinking behind it. So you can do that kind of in paragraphs and things like that. And then also in maybe the equipment that you're proposing, the solutions, that could be done in bullet points and things like that. Okay, so next question. Is there any simulator about the exam? No, we don't have like a dry run or anything because we believe that this webinar series will be sufficient to prep you for that. So for the PCE, there is a dry run, but not for the mPCE. Carl's asking, how will the certification improve the visibility of my company and its services? So what this badge is going to do is allow the individuals within your company to be recognized as experts within the maritime industry. So we're also going to be doing a maritime certified partner program as well. So it'll be similar lines to this, but it'll be where your company will have to have a few certified maritime engineers, and then we'll invite the companies that we see that are doing the best jobs within the marine industry, and we'll invite them to be part of that program. Is there a deadline for the mPCE exam? No, there is not a deadline for it, but however, it is free up until the 30th of June, I believe. So Joe Riley's asking, is the functionality and capabilities of the routers on board wireless LAN controller defined anywhere? For example, does it adjust the TX power and levels of the AP? Yep, so if you have a look at it, the AP controller is constantly evaluating all those kind of features. If you have one set up, you'll be able to see all the details of what it's doing, but it is retuning itself and making sure there's no frequency conflicts and things like that. You've got time slots where you can set it to do a frequency scan every night at a certain time or whatever time of the day you want. So there's a lot of things like that there. So Chris is asking, will external antennas be viable for millimeter wave 5G, or will there need to be active domes with modems integrated? So the 5G modems that we have been looking at, they are same configuration as the category 18 modems in terms of antenna connections. So they're a 4x4 so they have 4 antenna connections per modem. So they will work with the existing antennas, but you are going to want to evaluate that the frequencies and everything are appropriate for your installation. So regarding the SIM-bank operation over the dome, when I'm trying to understand the inserted SIM card from different countries, so different mCCE code per SIM card with SIM bands, will this follow the country's mobile signal coverings regarding the country driving, for example, by a truck vehicle? So I think what you're asking there is, if you have a SIM card in the SIM bank and you set the blocking code on the device, on the router, will it actually block it from that SIM card? Yes, it will. It's controlling it from the, it's using that SIM card in the router, so it'll be blocking it from there. So Justin's asking, is it possible to have the original slides of all the sessions, as well as the live recordings for reference and offering some internal training? So the recordings are available. The first 2 sessions are available through our forum. If you click on the link, it'll show up on YouTube. If you search in YouTube, they won't show up. You have to click on the link through our forum. Regarding the slides, there's also some of the slides being posted there. We have removed a few and shortened them down. But yeah, the first, I believe, 2 sessions there already, and we'll be adding the second 2 soon as well. So where can I get the study material for the PCE and mPCE, like the dumps and the simulator? So the study material for the PCE, if you go on the forum and if you have a look on the questions and answers regarding this webinar series, there is a link to the PCE training study webinars as well. For this mPCE, the training is this webinar, and so as long as you've watched that all, you should be well and truly prepared. And then the material to use is our website, the forums, and obviously one of the most important things that we're really interested in here is your actual personal knowledge of the of maritime installs. So Marcus is asking, what is the time limit to the mPCE once the exam starts, considering you need to put 50% weighting on the long answer? So the time limit on the exam is an hour. So there's 25 multiple choice questions. You should be able to get through the multiple choice questions in probably 15 to 20 minutes, and then you should have the rest of the time allocated for the long question. So Joe Riley asked, for maritime, range from the tower is obviously important. With that said, isn't the rollout of 5G our enemy, just as the demise of 3G is? So one of the things I've always said to people is think about how long it's taken from us to progress from 3G to 4G. Even really, it wasn't really until 3 years ago that we had probably decent 4G coverage in remote locations, as in at sea and things like that. And even still now, 4G, the moment you move away from populated areas, you don't have 4G. So 5G is generally shorter range as the first generation 5G. So that's not going to really be effective for vessels at sea, and they're still going to be reliant on 4G in those situations. But obviously close to coastlines and in ports, 5G, when they can get it, will be amazing. So I don't think 5G is our enemy or anything. It's something that we are going to embrace and make the most of it. So is there a 4x4 dome in the roadmap, as in 4 modems, 16 antennas, and that's 1 dome installed instead of using 4 domes of the Cat 18? So currently we don't have a dome that's like that. Simply put, having that much in a small space would be too much RF. I mean, I'm not sure what kind of size you're considering as a kind of acceptable size for that dome, but it's really a case of the RF would probably be too much, too consolidated. So for the mPCE that have multiple correct answers to the questions, how the marks are awarded. If there's multiple answers in the question, you will get the marks will be divided up between them. So for example, if there's a multiple choice question and there's 4 options and 2 of them are correct and you get 1 correct, so the weighting on the exam is 2 points per multiple choice answer. So in this case, if you had 4 options and 2 were correct and you only got 1 of them, you'd only get 1 point, not the full 2 points for that question. So Richard is asking, is there an option for a smaller sim injector, like 2 or 4 sims instead of 8 at a lower point to go with the HD1 dome? This is something that I have actually thought about myself, and I have mentioned it internally. So now that someone else has mentioned it, it's not just me thinking about it, which is great. If anyone else likes that kind of idea, yeah, definitely put it on the forum. So with any ideas like this that you have, the forum is a great place to go, because everyone on Peplink is on that, right from the people at the top, right through the engineers, the software developers, everyone's on it. And most of the stuff that have been developed, whether it be feature or hardware, is driven from the customer. And you might have a situation where you only need it for 1 boat or 1 install, just something little and quirky, whatever. But if you put that idea up on the forum and everyone else goes, oh my God, that's amazing, we'll look at that and go, okay, this has got ground. There's a lot of people that want this. Let's work on it. So that's how a lot of our development works. So get on the forum, and that's definitely a good place to start, and we can see if there's traction on that. But no, definitely having a 2 or 4 sim injector, I definitely think that would be a really cool idea. Yeah. So will the certified maritime partners be shown or listed on the Peplink website? So currently, you can be, if you're a partner and you meet the criteria, you can be listed on our website. We're not sure exactly how we're going to do it on the website, but it might be like you can have your Peplink partner as the main level, and then your company can get up to 2 badges of distinctions for 2 additional areas, or something like that. It hasn't been fully decided yet. So yeah, what it would mean is you'd be recognised as a company that is. So I know for Justin, you guys do a lot of maritime and a lot of transport. So your one could be your Peplink partner with recognition that the industries that you excel in would be maritime and transport. So that's kind of something we're still evaluating on exactly how to implement that. Simon's asking, could you please post the link for the SpeedFusion best practice and white paper I referred to in the last session? They are in the forum now. Let me see if I can post the link to that. I'm going to reply to your answer here now. Just let me bring up the post. I believe everyone should be able to see that post in the forum. So let me just bring up the Q&As. Yeah, so all the questions have been, the frequently asked questions have been put in the maritime section of the forum. Okay, so let me answer that live. Okay, Simon, I've just sent the link through to you there on the question and answer. So if you can't access that link, please let me know. Someone's asking, will you be informed via email when the exam is available? We'll probably have a follow-up email tomorrow, and just be asking for a few things like feedback and things like that. And we'll probably also notify you that the exam is open and ready. So is the study of the material available on the Peplink website sufficient to pass the PCE and mPCE exams? So there's a lot of material on our website. There's also our forum. I would highly recommend you have a look at that. Have a look at some of the talks that have a lot of chat on them. Also, our knowledge-based section of the forum has got a lot of articles written by both Peplink staff as well as some of our highly experienced partners. Marcus, who is here with us today, he's written a lot of articles on there that are very in-depth and knowledgeable. Not necessarily just in the maritime industry, but some other industries too, of how things have been implemented. So yeah, have a look at that. Also watch these previous webinars as well. They've covered a lot of info about it, and that should be sufficient for you to pass this exam. For the PCE exam, there's a series of webinars for that as well. So there's a link for that on the forum too. So Marcus is asking, what has been your experience in using WISP with maritime installation? So are you referring to like local maritime operators on that? I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about by the WISP, but I'm thinking you're talking about local ISPs kind of things. So with them, they would have to have their own customer premises equipment that you would be able to then feed into your installation. I haven't come across it myself, but I used to in the past operate a wireless service for vessels in Monaco, Cannes, Antibes, and Gulf Shuam. So I did have my own kind of wireless network down there that would provide the boats in the port. We did get up to about 12 miles, and that was then run through the PepWaves on board, but it was as a separate wireless bridge to the vessel. It wasn't using PepWave cellular modems or anything like that. It was a separate wireless bridge. Joe Riley's asking, with LEO on the horizon, are you looking at integrated SAT modems? This could be something we look at depending on how it's all done, but it could definitely be an option for like the SDX and the EPX range, where we have the flex modules that are changeable. So that's definitely an option with those, because any technology that comes out that requires its own common interface or something that's different to the normal can be done that way. Otherwise, with LEO, if the LEO equipment is going to have its option of its own modem and terminal and things like that, and that will be then presented to the PepWave as a Ethernet WAN. So then it all depends on how the LEO handles things, and yeah, there's definitely options there, and it all depends on how the systems are going to actually be. Yeah, and yeah, you're saying there, no pun intended, and I was kind of reading that, and I was reading it with the pun in it. Okay. What's the gain on the HD2 dome? I can send you through the gain on it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I can definitely send that through to you. Marcus has just clarified his previous one there about the WISP. So we have customers that use local WISPs and private wireless networks around ports. So when they are docked and then they use a local wireless connection, some of these from WISPs, yeah. So yeah, so that's definitely a something that can be done. Obviously, it needs to be either through, if they are offering a 4G network, a private 4G network, you'll need to get SIM cards from them, and it would have to be on frequencies that are covered by the PepWave, so that'd be completely possible. If they are using something like WiMAX or something like that, they will provide you with a CPE, so a wireless receiver or something like that, that'll connect into their network, and then it's up to you to place that on the vessel in a way that can connect to their network reliably. So yeah, that's pretty much what I was doing in the south of France for some vessels there. So Angus is asking, do we also get feedback after the exam on our answers? Yes, so what we can do is we can put when we're marking the exams, we don't know who's, whose answers they are, so it's anonymous that way. Once they are answered, or once we've marked them and we've verified it, we've got notes that we can put there. And then once we've submitted that answer into the system, then we can look at it. And if we feel that we want to give feedback on it after it's been marked, we can then contact you that way. So after it's marked, we can see, and it's verified, we can see who it was. So we can do it. We can give you feedback that way then. Okay, so do we have any more questions there? We have got time for plenty more questions if you want them. Even anything related to the maritime kind of vertical, even if we haven't covered it in these webinars, if you've got questions, go for it. I'm just going back through the chat to see if there's anything here that I've missed. Yes, okay, there's one thing here, guys. If you're on the training portal from tomorrow, when you log in, if you haven't passed the PCE exam, the mPCE exam will not be visible to you. So you need to have passed the PCE before it becomes even visible on the training portal. Okay, so Tim Arthur asks, any discussions of improving Wi-Fi's WAN to connect to captive portals? So captive portals have always been a difficult one because it all depends on what or how the captive portal's set up. Obviously, some captive portals are much easier to work with than others, but there has been work done on it. There recently has been a feature introduced in the new iOS in Control 2. Is it no, sorry, Router Utility, the Router Utility app on for smartphones. There is now the function of being able to control the Wi-Fi WAN from that on your smartphone. So this was introduced for some of the smaller vessels where the clients might not necessarily live on board or anything like that, and they might just be out on the boat just for the day, so they might not have a computer with them. They might only have an iPhone or an iPad. So now from there you can actually look at the router and look at the Wi-Fi WANs and disconnect and reconnect to the different ones. So that is something that was just recently added about a month ago. But yeah, on the captive portals, it is a hard one because the captive portals are designed for an individual user to be using it rather than a whole vessel. So it's something that has been worked on, and they have looked at many ways of improving it. But yeah, each captive portal works in a different way, so it can be a bit hard to make it work nice with all of them. So will there be dead spots or weak spots of signal while traveling on the sea or ocean? Oh yes, definitely. There are always dead spots and weak spots. So this is where things come in. It really depends on the vessel's itinerary. If it's an ocean-going ship, they're going to need satellite as well. If it's a coastal cruising boat, utilizing a multi-modem router and multiple SIM cards from different providers allows you a much greater footprint because the different networks have different coverage areas and things like that. So once you combine that and speed fusion, it means as you cruise along the coast, you're going to get a much better quality of service on board. So yeah, there will definitely still be dead spots and weak spots. But this is just for an example. I did an install on a 100-foot boat that does 35, 40 knots. And we did a test run from the south of France, from Cannes. We went down to Saint-Tropez, and on the way down there, we decided we're going to run the IPTV, and we're just going to have it on a single SIM card. We're not going to do speed fusion or anything like that. And this was about 3 or 4 years ago, so it was quite a while ago now. And the cellular signal strength along there is better now, but that time was pretty bad. So anyway, on the way down there, doing about 30 knots, we lost the TV. It was buffering constantly, had to keep on reconnecting, and pretty much it was unwatchable. You couldn't watch it at all. It was frustrating. So we got down to Saint-Tropez, and we then enabled Speed Fusion and routed the TV over it. And on the way back, on the way down, every time it buffered, it would stop and then it would freeze. And after about 30 seconds, it might come back. If it didn't come back, we'd have to change channel, and then it'd be okay for another minute or two. But anyway, once we're on the way back with Speed Fusion running, the whole way back, it started buffering, I think, 2 or 3 times. And when it did buffer, it was only for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then it carried on playing. So it was it was noticeable, but it was definitely it was a massive improvement compared to what it was on the past. In the past, it was unwatchable, and it went to be completely acceptable then. So Tom Turner is asking, hi, could you please quickly go over the importance of grounding? Is it just for lightning protection, or do you see a difference in performance and range with antennas? So it's for both. It's for protection of the equipment and for range. Depending on the install and that, we have had reports of grounding seriously improving signal strength. And also sometimes there can be a pesky little frequency or something somewhere, and that's because the equipment's getting a hum from something. And if you ground it, you can isolate that and get rid of it. So it's kind of a best practice to that grounding should be taken into consideration. And every vessel is going to be different for grounding. Obviously, the theory behind grounding is the same, but how it's actually implemented on each vessel is going to be different. So Richard said, for my maritime projects, we've used a dedicated Wi-Fi extender. It is integrated captive portal handling, proxying of the login page through to the extender, so it works through the NAT router, etc. Yep, they are out there, and you can use that on the WAN port of the Peplink if you do that. I know it would be nice to have it integrated with it, but it really depends on how it's been handled by the device. So if you want to send me the ones that you do actually use, and we can have a look at them and see if they've got any functions that we don't, that we could maybe implement. So Manuel asks, it'd be great to have in the future a simulation tool such as Cisco with a packet trace. We have got trace route and ping on the advanced on our tools. We've also got a packet capture available on the support page. The support page is hidden if you want to know how to access it. Do a little digging in the forum, the info's there. So yeah, on the support page you can set a packet capture to capture all the packets and then dump them to either a remote server, or download them as a file. So if you want to do that, that is possible. Chris is asking, do we have any examples to share of grounding done right or done wrong? I was looking through some photos last week, and sadly the photos that I found that were both good and bad were on boats that have got very strict NDAs. So I am unable to share any of those details. But I can explain one to you that I don't have photos of, but it was pretty much the rack had a lovely grounding plate on it that was labeled and all that. Everything that said it goes to the ground in the hull and all that. You know, we were having some issues, and we traced back that it was a nice thick gauge, the proper cable for grounding and all that, and we traced it back through the wiring loom and gave it a pull after a meter or two, and it came straight out. It had just been run into the wiring loom and just left there. It wasn't even actually grounded to anything, so it was kind of like, that's not actually going to do anything. So that's the kind of thing of actually testing that it is grounded properly rather than just a dummy one. Todd asked, does IP pass-through or bridge mode require static IP address? So no, it doesn't. So if you set your modem, so whether it be a VSAT modem or a fiber modem or something like that, if you set that to bridge mode or dumb mode or whatever you want to call it, you can then configure the PepWave as either DHCP if you can get a DHCP address on the WAN, you can set it that. Otherwise, you can set it to static. So it doesn't have to be static or DHCP. It can be either or, but it really depends on the setup and how it is configured on the ISP side. Generally, with VSAT modems are set up to that you'll be given a public IP address that you enter the settings manually into your equipment, and you then maintain that. If it was something that was not a static IP address, then it's going to have to use DHCP to get an address each time. Joshua was asking to rewatch these. Where will they be posted? They're all posted on the forum. The first 2 sessions are posted on the forum. I'm going to post the link here again. But the first 2 are on there, and the and I'm going to post the link for you, Joshua. There you go. So the first 2 are up on the forum now. You click on the link and it takes you to YouTube. So yeah, they're there. The 3rd session will be available on tomorrow, and this session will be available by the end of the week. Okay, so I've got a few more questions coming in there now. So Todd's asking, is what we're talking about the IP pass-through different from drop-in mode? Yes, it is different from drop-in mode. From drop-in mode, drop-in mode is where you insert an existing network between the router and the local network, so that you're giving the network an additional route to the internet if needed. So yeah, they are different. Okay. So what is my experience with the lightning protected connectors such as those offered by Times Microwave? Okay, so I haven't personally used them as such, as quite a lot of the installs have already had them installed on them. Some of them can have a bit of loss on them. Do your research into them. I believe Marcus has done a really good article on the lightning protection on the forum, so have a look at that. And then yeah, there's a lot of science behind it on how they blow and things like that as well. Guys, I'm just going to paste that last link in the main chat there now, because it's not, I didn't realize, but it's not copyable from there. Okay. So if we don't have any more questions, I think we're going to call it a day at that. So I would like to say a big thank you to everyone. And yeah, especially to people like Marcus who have been here for all of the sessions, and especially when it's a ridiculous hour of the night for you, Marcus. So yeah, good out to you. Cool. Well, thank you, everyone, and yeah, have a good week. If you have any more questions, you can send them to us at maritime@peplink.com, If you need any of the data sheets or anything like that, again, send us an email. And yeah, we're doing some more webinars soon. The next webinar will be aimed at the onboard users, so people that are actually using this stuff day to day. So we'll actually cover things like real time. We'll do some live demos of setting up outbound policies and configuring firewalls and different WANs and all those kind of things that are hands-on. Cool. Well, thank you very much and have a good week.